I have a pretty good idea of what your childhood sounded like if you have ADHD. You have probably been told a million times things like, you're not applying yourself and you need to live up to your potential or just focus on one thing at a time. And, since everyone and their brother who doesn't have ADHD thinks they know best, today, Cass and I are going to rate and rank the advice that neurotypicals like to give us. I'm Aaron.
I'm Cass.
We forgot to introduce ourselves on our other episode we filmed today, but now we're going to let you know that this is Fuck the Plan, the ADHD Project
We'll
podcast.
have to do it enough in this episode to make up for the last one.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm Cass.
I'm Aaron.
And let's do this. So first, I guess if you think we're going to spend 45 minutes bashing people who don't have ADHD, that's really not the case. The topic is actually one that I'm kind of mixed on because I have gotten results from some of these things, funny enough. So that's kind of why I wanted to actually rate and rank them, is because sometimes it works, but not in the way they intended. Like most of the time, people just have a hard time understanding what it's like to have ADHD, so they give you advice based on their understanding of things.
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't help or hurt. It's just so simplified that it's just, why don't you just focus? Oh, shit. You know what? Thank you. That totally...
Wow. Why don't I just forget that my brain doesn't work?
Yeah.
Like, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Perfect.
Or my wife was just saying, just like her dad, well, I keep a handwritten list in my breast pocket and I've always gotten everything I've needed to do done. I'm like, yeah, you absolutely have, Steve. You've done a fantastic job at that. Your brain probably works better than mine does, so good for you.
It's well-intentioned most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah. But they just don't realize that it doesn't really apply to how your brain operates. And I can't always fault people for that because that's what they know. I know how my brain works. If I could experience what it's like to be a neurotypical, I don't know if I could handle that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it would be like me telling a neurotypical who is having trouble sleeping for like a week, being like, I don't understand. Why don't you just sleep 4 hours and go to work?
Yeah.
Because normal people can't do that.
Wait, how many hours should I be sleeping?
4, right?
4? I think it's 4.
That's the recommended dose.
I usually sleep. Recommended dose
I
of
will have
sleep.
4 milligrams of sleep, please.
I think you need like 10 milligrams of Ambien to actually sleep, right?
Yeah, that's about what I had.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I sleep for about, because what this kind of leads into one of the pieces of advice. So I do this funny thing when I sleep is that I sleep about 5 to 6 hours a night during the week. And then one weekend day, I try and sleep 8 hours. And call me silly, but it somewhat works for me. And then I always joke that once a year, I basically have a free trial of death for 10 to 12 hours and I am just gone. And it's usually after we're coming home from vacation, we've spent 24 hours traveling. You finally get to your own bed after a week or two of sleeping in hotels or whatever. And I lay down and just pass away from, 11 p.m. until 11 a.m. the next day.
Especially if there are time zone differences.
Oh, for sure.
Around.
When we were coming back from our honeymoon, we went to London. It was a backwards time change with 5 hours. It was rough.
6 hours, something like that.
Yeah, it depends on daylight savings, I think, but it was rough. So, one of the pieces of advice that I get is about waking up earlier. So things like that we've gotten over the years, all throughout school, I've been told these things when I was a child, such as, are you getting enough sleep? Or you're so smart, but you don't apply yourself, But people don't always understand that applying myself is the hard part for me. And that's what I'm always trying to do. It's not that I have an issue with doing homework or writing an essay. It's that I can't physically apply myself to do that because of how my brain works.
Well, and apply yourself, it's
a loose term, I guess.
It's very loose. What is your definition of applying yourself?
So I guess that what I'm trying to get at is it doesn't necessarily mean that I can't do the task.
Right.
It's that I have a hard time devoting the effort to the task because my brain has a difficult time doing things. So a good way of describing ADHD to someone who's never heard of it before is that part of your brain is for knowing and another part of your brain is for doing. And with ADHD, you have a separation between those two. They're not really linked. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you are neurotypical, you're knowing and you're doing. You're knowing you need to do something and the actual action of doing it are inextricably linked. When you know you have to do something, that's intrinsic motivation to get up and do it. But my brain doesn't work like that. I could know I need to do something for 6 months and still not do it, even while knowing that, hey, all of these terrible things that are happening are a direct result of this. But it's difficult to get your brain to translate the knowing to doing. And it's an example of how people don't necessarily understand how their advice should apply because they don't know how your brain works.
Right. I like to think of the knowing and doing as a divorced couple, and I am their child.
I like where this is going already.
And they really just try to one-up each other and buy me fancier gifts. And all of a sudden I'm in distress, and then they're like, oh shit, we should probably just, let's come together and we'll work together to help them out of this one. Okay, all right. And they'll be civil.
Civil.
But they will never be married.
No, I don't think so. They'll be civil. Maybe they'll have this is a family show. Maybe they'll have a moment of passion.
Yes.
You know, maybe they'll...
A family show. It's called Fuck the Plan.
I don't know. You know what I mean. My in-laws listen to this, so... or do they? Barb, you out there? I love you. I want you to be a guest on the show. My mother-in-law's a therapist, so it would be awesome to have her on here. But anyways... So I think that's a really good way of putting it and kind of personifying it. So what I want to start to get into now is like going through some of the list and ranking these things and from like 1 to 5, basically stars, as far as how well it actually works or how well it applies. And I kind of want to discuss like, all right, you're thinking of it one way as a neurotypical, and here's what it's actually translating to and what that means for somebody who is neurodiverse or has ADHD. Mm-hmm.
And to put it out there, honestly, I don't know how many people I know that aren't diagnosed with something mental.
That's true.
I think we all just kind of attract each other.
Yeah.
But it's really in places like in the workplace.
In the workplace is a big one.
Where you're kind of introduced to people whose company you might not seek out on your own.
Yeah.
Where you start meeting these people, or with family.
Yes, family is a big one because like you can't always escape them. So you know you're at Christmas dinner and your Aunt Susie is like, oh well, why don't you just keep a to-do list? You know, like I tried that one, Aunt Susie, only like 900 times in my life. All right, so here's the first one. We'll just kind of get into it, and again we're going to rank them 1 to 5, and then
5 being the most effective.
5 being the most effective or most applicable, like how well it worked, and 1 being the least. It didn't do a damn thing for us. And I have tried many of these. And so if you have not, I might be able to share some on it. But here's one that I've actually also heard from people with ADHD. So the first piece of advice we're going to rank is you don't need ADHD medication. You just need to focus. Okay, so what's the medication supposed to help with then, if not focus, right?
You don't need insulin. Your body just needs to learn how to process sugar effectively.
Yeah. So I'm immediately off the bat, and I'm going to explain why, but I'm going to give this one a 1, because you can't do 0.
Can I go lower?
We can go lower. No, 1 being the lowest. So 1 would be equivalent of a 0. It's not helpful at all. So we both rated that one a 1, and here's why. So the thing is, in order to learn to focus on one thing at a time, we need medication to make our brains work properly. And that's why I like the insulin example, right? So if you are diabetic, your body does not produce insulin. Therefore, you need to get it externally in order for your body to reach a baseline level of where you're supposed to be. With an ADHD brain, similar situation, but with dopamine instead. Our brains do not produce enough of that happy, motivating chemical dopamine, and we need something to help replace that. Now, it's not always medication, of course.
And not everybody, again, as we keep saying, it is a spectrum. Everything is a spectrum, and not everybody can be helped with medication.
Right.
And I mean, we really talked about this in the comorbidity episode, where sometimes, depending on what else is going on with your brain, it might be actively harmful to be on medication just because of the nature of what ADHD meds do.
Exactly.
But that being said, some of us do need it.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't take my Adderall today because I wasn't working. And by the time I remembered to take it, I was like, it's 5 p.m. and
you're going to be up all night.
I don't want to take it right now.
Yeah.
And I can feel the difference.
Oh, yeah.
It's much harder for me to like not wander right now. And I have to keep reminding myself, no. I was on a job training for like a trivia thing I'm hosting. It's my first night doing a Family Feud style thing. And so I was on with my boss on Zoom learning how to do this. And I just like kept like looking at the birds outside, and I was like, I wonder what it's like to fly. I bet that's cool. Wait, shit, how do I do that? and
so I bet you've had that moment on and off of your medication, and how much easier is it to snap yourself back into what you're doing when you do have your prescribed medication?
So much easier. And it's like I'm self-aware, and I know that ultimately I'll be okay. I'll probably be able to find a way to land back on my feet in a situation, or like be able to act around it and act like, oh, it was a technological glitch or whatever. But like, I would like to not have to.
Yeah.
And it's energy spent that could be spent doing something much more productive.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's not going to fix you, but it's going to make your life so much easier.
And, stopping short of advocating for medication, because I'm not a doctor and we don't want to necessarily say everybody needs medication, but I was talking to a friend of ours, and she was telling my wife and I how she's getting tested. She may have ADHD. And she said, if I do, I don't know. I don't think I want to take medication for it. And I said to her, that's totally fine. But how do you know? Mm-hmm. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, if you don't know what it's like having tried medication, how do you know what you're saying no to? I'm perfectly okay if people don't want to take medication.
Yeah.
There's no problem with that. All I'm advocating for is that you know what you're saying no to, because I had a moment where I wasn't sure that I wanted medication, and then I tried it. I was like, oh shit, life is this easy for other people? Holy shit.
And I mean, and it's a hard process doing that, like adjusting to a new medication. You feel like a guinea pig.
Yeah, it's not just one and done.
No, and with ADHD meds, it gets you, because it's a stimulant, that first like couple of weeks that you're on it, you want to punch your fist through steel. You get so irritable.
Right.
But then it'll subside and you start feeling normal.
You know what happened to me when I first started with Adderall. I take Vyvanse now, but it made me sweat like a monster. And like, I'm a sweaty dude already. I'll just put it out there. Like, I'm not a dry guy, but like when I was taking this, I'm talking, I could not go 2 hours without my shirt all the way down to my side being completely soaked. And it was uncomfortable. It was bad. Remember, like
nice
at work?
Dress shirts,
I know,
man.
It was rough. When
they were white, it was done. I'm like, you should burn that.
It was over. But yeah, so anyways, I guess the point here, we're still going to, rank, you don't need meds, you just need to learn to focus as a 1. Both Cass and I are. But what I really want people to take away from that is it's okay not to take meds, but just know what you're saying no to, because you never know how it could help you. And if you try it and decide it's not for you, whatever, it's not for you.
And if they're not for you, don't assume that rule applies to everybody else.
That's true. Very true. All right, so the next one we're going to go on to, why don't you just use your phone and set reminders for everything, is a piece of advice. So, firstly, I will say I've got 80,000 reminders on my phone. I don't know if you've ever, if you're giving this advice to someone who has ADHD, just know that they have tried it, dude. They have multiple reminders on their phone. My issue with it is that when the reminder comes up, I say, oh, I made you. You don't mean anything. And I just zip the notification away, and I'm just like, whatever, this isn't real. There's no real consequences to this. And so I just ignore them.
I'm less so like that. I'm honestly going to give this one a 3.
All right.
Because sometimes you just forget to set the goddamn reminder.
Yes.
And
if I can remember to set it,
Once you get into a routine, we've talked about this before, it's easier. I have, my Google Calendar on here because I have like 1,000 jobs. I have definitely been utilizing this more.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have to. There's no other way. But when it comes to like alarm reminders, let me see what mine is up here. Because I definitely have some labels.
What do we got going on?
This one. That's a perfect one. Alarm set for 4:05 p.m. Answer text messages.
I love that. I got to pull my phone out now, too, because I do have reminders. So, one thing that I do is I write things down physically on a piece of paper, and it's because it helps me process it better when I take a second to write it down. But what I have a hard time doing is stopping and switching tasks. So if I have things written down, I've got to wash the dishes at X time and I've got to mow the lawn at this time, I'll be so lost in washing dishes that I'll forget to stop and go do a meeting or something silly like that. So my alarms are more having to do with stopping and switching tasks. So here's one that I set for 12:55 today to remind me to clock back in from my lunch break working from home. And it just says, I back.
iBack, the new product from Apple.
Then there's, let's see, 6 a.m., meds and coffee every single day. And I know that happens at the same time every day because I get up early, but it's there as a marker. So I wake up around 5 most days, and I try not to drink coffee for the first hour because of cortisol levels and all that stuff. But I try and start at 6 a.m., I make my coffee and I take my meds. So that way it's at the same time every day. And if I'm in the other room petting the cat and I can hear my phone timer go off, I'm like, oh, well, I guess it's 6 o'clock. It's time to switch tasks. So I don't necessarily set them, a week in advance to remember to change the laundry, but I do use them to switch tasks. So I'm going to go with you on this one. I promise we won't have all of them the same, but we'll do 3 on this one as well.
Also, I guarantee you that even with that reminder, I did not answer all the text messages.
No. Do you still owe me a text message?
Probably.
I don't know.
Dude, I've become so bad.
Whatever. That's a topic for another one, but I don't necessarily need a response right away.
If you're waiting on a text from me, you're going to be waiting for a while.
There's a wait list, 7 to 10 business days.
What? No, fuck it. I'm not sorry. There's a lot going on in the world right now.
You're not kidding.
Send me a meme of a dog. I'll answer that.
There we go. All right, so here's another one, and this is one that I've gone back and forth on over the years, and I do have some mixed feelings on, but I have had people so many times tell me, well, why don't you just wake up earlier, and then you'll have time to get things done in the morning? Have you tried that at all?
That's a very much an easier said than done thing.
It is.
And
because it's not, you can't just decide to do it and do it. You have to build that habit over time.
It also very much depends on your lifestyle.
Yeah.
If you have the same work schedule every day, you can get into that.
Yeah.
But like on Monday, I'm hosting board game speed dating up in Portland, Maine.
Yeah.
And then on the 18th, I need to go to Amazon in Massachusetts at, 8 in the morning. I am going to get home probably at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Don't tell me to wake up earlier. I'll get home at 1 a.m. I'll be all happy because I'll be in my performance high.
Yeah, you can't go right to bed.
I'll want to say hi to my fiance and hug my dog. By the time I go to sleep, it might be 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Don't tell me to wake up at 5.
No, not at all. And what I find is so yes, I will acknowledge that I do wake up very early in the morning. I get up at 5, and it's for a reason. But what I have realized is that it's not really about waking up earlier. It's about making the first half hour to hour of your day about easing yourself into your day, because we are very much expected to just wake up and immediately be productive. Almost everybody that I know, if you work at 9, you wake up at 7:30, maybe get a shower, get ready to go, and then you're out the door as quickly as you possibly can with as little time as possible, because everybody wants to maximize their sleep. So I don't care if you're sleeping the same number of hours and you're going to bed an hour earlier. If you dedicate a half hour to an hour in the morning to, for me personally, I wake up, I try and write something, just get my thoughts out of my brain for 5 minutes. I try and read for 5 minutes. Most days when I remember to, I meditate. But that's all just a process in getting my brain and self ready for taking on the day mentally. And that is what's more important than the time that you wake up.
And I'll go back to a time where I had a more normal schedule.
Right.
When I was doing the investment thing, I can say that it definitely applied more then.
Yeah.
Because my routine would be, I would get up at 5.
Right.
I would go to the gym. I would, I'd be on that heavy bag because I had anger issues that I couldn't get out on the customers. And then I would go home and shower and have something to eat. And then I would go to work. And the days that I didn't do that, the days where maybe the band had a really late gig and I just couldn't get myself up at 5.
Yeah.
Those days I would be miserable. Because especially if you're somebody who you don't like your job.
Right.
For me, it was actively draining. It was more than I don't like my job. But you start feeling, especially in the winter, that's all your life is.
Yeah.
Because you get up, you're at work. By the time you're out, it's dark out, you go home.
Yes.
And when you start feeling like all you are is this thing that you hate, I mean, I don't have to explain why that's destructive.
No, it's pretty rough. And it's like, this is something that I talk about a lot, is that like everybody lets their jobs consume them. And it's very easy to do that if you don't have any separation in between your life and your job. So the hour that I spend getting my mind right in the morning is a separation, and it gives me space to realize that my job is a part of my life. It's not my life. Even the ADHD project, which I've dedicated every single morning to since the beginning of last year. And I care about it. And it's something I actually really love and enjoy doing. And I would be thrilled if I could do that full time as my only job for the rest of my life. But there still needs to be a separation there, because I don't want to take that at the end of the day and then bring that with me. So why would I just be waking up, opening my eyes, and immediately feeling like I'm in that? I need some time from my life, from my brain, from myself to just be, to just exist before I am expected to be productive. And that's what is more important, not waking up earlier just to wake up earlier and then sit in bed and play on your phone for an hour. It's to actually prepare yourself for the day and to actually give yourself some time to acknowledge that you are a human that exists outside of employment.
And so some of these things are like, at the root, it's good advice.
Yeah.
But the way it's packaged is tone deaf.
Exactly.
And so it's kind of like we have to run it through a few layers of ADHD, Google Translate, and then we get to the bottom of it like we just did. And then all of a sudden it might go from like a 2 to a 4.
Yeah. There's a Key and Peele sketch in there, when they were doing like the anger translator for Obama. Do you remember that sketch?
No.
We'll probably get copyrighted on YouTube if I put it in the clip. But there's this sketch where on Key and Peele, one of them plays Barack Obama as president and the other one plays the anger translator. And he says something like very political and correct. And the other dude's like, y'all fucking idiots. Like, he's like saying what he actually means.
Yeah.
So you got to get that.
Go watch that.
Yeah. All right. So let's rank this one. So I'm actually going to give Just Wake Up Earlier a 3 because of what we said. Because if you use it the right way, it can actually be helpful advice, but you have to apply it properly.
And I'll say on face value 2.
After
we think about it 4.
Okay. So does that average out to a 3?
You know what? Yeah, I guess it does.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So here's another one that I have been told a bajillion times, and that's you just have to break big projects and things down into smaller steps. Really now?
I'm giving it a 1 because when you break things down into smaller steps, suddenly your to-do list is longer and it's easier to get overwhelmed.
Well, you just have to have 2 lists.
That's worse. I'm going to lose one of them.
No, it's not. You keep them in the same book. No, so I'm actually going to go entirely opposite of you, and I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. I can't say 5. I can't say it's perfect. But what I have found is that we have a lot of trouble as people with ADHD starting things because they take a lot of mental effort, and your brain will do anything to not use mental effort.
Yes.
So if you look at a big thing, like, I'm thinking of like some sort of big project, like not, something like, all right, I need to get Christmas gifts for my entire family. Okay. So what do? You get one for mom, you get one for dad, you get one for brother, for sister, so on and so forth. That is a big project, getting Christmas presents for everybody that you've broken down into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, however many people you have in your life. So when you have a big idea that you want to do, like I want to get in shape, that's kind of nothingness,
Yes.
But if you say, all right, instead of wanting to get in shape, my goal is I want to care more about my health. And the way to do that is by exercising. I want to try and exercise. That's one part of caring about my health more. And then once you start to get a routine, you figure out how that one works, then you move on. Okay, so I'm exercising now. Now let's look at what I'm eating. And that's another step of the process to get in better shape. And all of this is working towards a big project type goal, but it does have to be broken down into those smaller steps if you ever want to achieve it.
I guess it's all about moderation.
Yeah.
Because if you look at something like that, something where I want to get in shape, where it's not a tangible goal.
Right.
Breaking it into smaller steps also just kind of looks like making it tangible.
Yeah.
And so in that respect, I get that. But if your task is something like you want to clean the house, breaking it into, I'm going to start with the living room, I'm going to start with my bedroom, then I'm going to go to my bedroom, making an order, yes. But if you start really micromanaging yourself and you're like, first I'm going to clean the mirror and then I'm going to get into the shower, I will clean the tiles. And then all of a sudden I'm going to snake the drain and then I'm going to do this. Yeah. Your list becomes so long that you're like, I'm never going to get this stuff done.
I will give you that one for sure. Like a lot of times my task is clean the kitchen. So I won't write down like an order. I'll just write down dishes, counters, cabinets, clean the stove. And I'll bounce around. I'll clean that counter over there and then I'll wash a dish and then I'll clean that counter over there. So to me, it's more about, acknowledging that there are multiple things because every big thing is just a combination of many small things. So by acknowledging that, you remove that roadblock of I don't know where to start. It's more about getting the momentum going.
Yeah. Once you have the momentum though, don't keep trying to break it down into smaller parts.
I can agree with that. Yeah, you can't get so granular that it's overwhelming.
And that's how my brain works.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think prioritizing things and setting it aside to put an order down, I think is very helpful. It's just, I know my personality, I will go so far the other way that it will become a problem.
That's funny.
So, all right. You know what? I will boost it up to a 2.
To a 2? You're going to give it a 2? All right. I'm going to stick with my original answer of 4, and we'll keep that one. All right. And so, speaking of, that's actually a good segue. The next one is, just make a list of everything you have to do and then do it one by one.
We kind of just reviewed that.
Yeah, we kind of did. Yeah. So, although I don't know. You know what? I don't know. I think I have to break this out because breaking a big project down into smaller steps is something that I think is valuable. So, making a list of everything and just doing it one by one, that to me sounds more like, okay, clean the house, mow the lawn, go grocery shopping, all of the big projects just on a big list and then just do them one by, or like we said at the beginning, my father-in-law, I just keep a running list in my breast pocket and I just do everything. I'm like, okay, well that doesn't work when your brain's got a problem with doing things, right? So I think there is value to making lists, but I think I can't give this more than a 2 because for ADHD, you really have to consider priorities. What's more important to do? So I've got to rate. I have to rank this one separately, and I'm going to give it a 2.
I went further into this territory with the one before it than you did, so I'm going to keep it at a 2.
All right, let's do that. Okay, so this is a fun one, and you might be surprised at my answer. So this one just says, and this was a literal YouTube comment that I got on a video of mine. So I actually made a video about this where I was reacting to unhinged YouTube comments that I received, and this was one of them. So it's hilarious.
Wait, you received this?
Yes, this was a comment on one of my YouTube videos, and this is word for word. Actually, it's not, because instead of willpower, they wrote well power because they were using water for power out of a well.
Hydropower is
it's very efficient.
It's economically,
to be honest,
and
if only
environmentally.
If only I could power my brain with it.
Let's make a mill, the Mind Mill.
The Mind Mill.
New band name.
I love it. So this piece of advice, which came from an unhinged YouTube comment that I received, is train your mind with enough willpower or well power, depending. You can train yourself to refocus.
Now, you said that was a comment. Are you sure it wasn't like a fortune cookie?
It could have been.
It seems like it.
I don't know. The guy didn't seem like the fortune cookie type. He didn't just didn't seem like he had that much wisdom. So I want to hear your thoughts, and then I think you might be a little bit surprised by what I have to say about this.
Again, it sounds like a fortune cookie.
Right.
It's like the get in shape. It's like, yeah, that sounds great in theory, but what?
But what?
Yeah, obviously, sure, with enough willpower, you can train yourself to do a lot of things.
Right.
But it's not gonna fix my brain chemistry.
I think the issue that I take with it is the willpower part, because it's not about willpower.
It's not about willpower.
I have a lot of willpower to do things, but that doesn't actually make my brain get up and do things.
Right.
So the reason that I'm kind of mixed on this is that I do actually believe that you can train your mind to refocus better, but it's not just by willing it to refocus better.
It's with medication and therapy and friends and having some sort of outlet and educating yourself.
There's been a lot of studies that I've seen and that have also been, now they're starting to do them with ADHD, that meditation actually helps you build new neural pathways and helps you learn to refocus better.
I'm sure it does. I've never been able to do it successfully.
So a lot of times, so I do meditate whenever when I remember to. I try. I'm not perfect, but I probably get 3 or 4 days a week just for like 5 minutes in the morning.
That's very impressive to me.
So at first, I was really hung up on it because I'm not good at it, and my brain, I would like lose focus, and your brain would go off on tangents into other things. And I started looking into it until somebody told me that that's actually the point of meditation. The whole point of it is, when you do lose focus or find your mind wandering, you acknowledge your thoughts and acknowledge that they're wandering, and you guide yourself back to what you're focusing on. And that is literally the practice of meditation. It's not the sitting part. It's the part where you get it wrong and then have to guide yourself back. That's the thing you're practicing.
But isn't what you're trying to focus on just kind of nothing? Like the nothingness?
Not necessarily, no. So a lot of times when I meditate, it's more about specific things. So you'll focus on sensations in your body, things that you're seeing, things that you're feeling. Like there's plenty of meditations where your eyes are open. One of the things that I try and do a lot of times when I meditate is I try and observe my thoughts. And so I will let my thoughts happen, and then I will reflect on them and say, where are these coming from? Is this coming from a place of stress? Is this coming from this or that? Or there's other times where I will do like where you tense up your arms and then you let go, or you close your eyes and like you roll them up or to the side and you feel that tension and then you let it release. And it's lots of these different techniques and things. There's a great app I'll recommend to you when we're not on camera. Cool. It's awesome. But yeah, I think that there is a way that we can do that. It's just not by willing yourself to refocus.
It's a gross oversimplification, but it's also incredibly dismissive.
Yes.
And to have somebody with ADHD read something like that, who's maybe not getting the enforcement and the resources that they need externally, that's really just going to it's just going to hold them back from maybe finding what's going to help them.
Right. It's just not helpful to have out there in the world. All right. So moving on from that one. Well, before we move on, I'm actually going to give that one a 4, even though when I first saw that comment on YouTube, I was like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? And the reason I'm doing it is because I'm going to forgive him for saying willpower. And I'm going to say...
willpower? Can you forgive that?
No, I cannot. I actually have to go and put a well in my backyard after we finish here.
Shit, I didn't wear the shoes to help you with that.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to figure it out. So I'm going to give that one a 4.
So I think if we just took you can train yourself to refocus, I would give it a 4 or a 5.
Yeah.
But with the train wreck that comes first, I'm going to give it a 1.
All right. You see, here's the difference between you and I is you judge these people at face value, and I like to see the potential in things.
I saw the potential in one of the ones up there.
That's true.
It's just... it definitely felt like the intention of that comment was to be dismissive.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I am probably giving more credit than should be given. But to be honest, it's because of my explanation of it. So I'm giving myself the credit in a very uncharacteristically selfish and narcissistic way that I really am not like in 99% of the rest of my life. But here we are. All right, so we're going to get through a couple more of these here. Let's see. I'm going to try and pick ones that are fun first. Okay, so this is one that I think is pretty fun as far as like having heard it. Why don't you just do it now and then you won't have to worry about it when it comes to tasks and things that you have to do? It's like, dude, the whole reason that I'm worried about it is I can't fucking do it right now.
And this is one that would wildly differ depending on the situation.
Yeah, so let me give a little bit of context. Like this often comes to me in the form of like household tasks and chores. So like I have always historically in my life hated doing dishes and mowing the lawn. Maybe it's because those were my chores as a kid, but I do not like doing dishes at all. And now my desire to do dishes every single day is born out of my hatred of having any dishes left to do. So I kind of had this weird 360 with it to now I do a little bit of dishes every day so that way I never have to do a lot of dishes.
Yeah.
But the intent of this is, all right, well, you have dishes out there that need to be done. Why are you putting it off? Why don't you just do it and then you won't have to worry about it anymore? And that comes from a very a very neurotypical perspective because they don't understand the executive function challenges that we have with actually getting our brains to get up and do the thing. Odds are, if I've got a pile of dishes, I have been screaming at myself internally for 24 to 48 hours about how I should have done it yesterday, and it's not done yet, and it is killing me and eating me alive inside, and I just can't physically get my body to get up and do it.
I will say this one definitely feels more well-intentioned than dismissive.
True.
But yeah, the only times that I think that statement would actually be helpful is like an off-the-cuff, this really doesn't have anything to do with ADHD kind of thing.
Yeah. I think that sounds about right. And it's like, this is one that's just easy to say and it works for neurotypicals, but does not work for people with ADHD.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing that we have a problem with is just doing it. No, never in the history of forever has anyone with ADHD just done the thing. Like,
no, Shia LaBeouf would be very sad with us.
Just do it! You know, like the mental gymnastics I have to do to brush my teeth every day is incomprehensible to a neurotypical person. And we're talking about brushing your teeth, okay? So why don't you just do it now and then you don't have to worry about it is not going to work for me because I will still do nothing but worry about it no matter what the situation is.
I'll worry about it while I'm doing it.
Hell yeah.
Don't like underestimate me.
Absolutely.
I can worry while doing anything.
I would never underestimate your ability to worry about shit, Cass. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go the Cass route and I'm going to give this one on face value a 1.
I'm going to give it a 1 too. As it applies to people with ADHD, I'm going to give that a 1.
All right.
But I'm less callous about it because it didn't feel like it's coming out of a place of being dismissive. It felt actually well-intentioned, just misguided.
Yeah, I think that's about right. So speaking of one that feels well-intentioned but misguided, I've heard this one quite a bit, which is you need more routine and structure in your life. Yeah, the silence kind of speaks volumes there. So, like, routine and structure is a prison, but it's also kind of the only way that we can get things done.
And as I've said at least once every episode, it doesn't work with every lifestyle.
No, it really does not. And sometimes a routine can be a micro thing, you know, like if I don't have a whole hour in the morning to get myself ready for the day, I know that if I sit and read for 5 minutes and then I just try and meditate for 2 minutes, I'm talking 120 seconds, those 5 and 2 minute things will stop me from thinking about whatever I was doing and put me in the frame of mind for working. And so that's a mini routine that we can use. But this is often meant to just be like, well, you need to be like military style routine. You get up at this time, do this, that, the other thing, and just like have a rigid, strict structure. And on one hand, we hate having that structure, but at the same time, it does kind of reduce a lot of the mental effort that you have to do in your day. Because if you're not always wondering what you're doing next, you can spend that mental energy on thinking about things that matter.
Yes. This is one where I'll go your route on and really think about it.
Yeah.
Because even though it certainly wouldn't apply to my lifestyle for the most part, there are definitely little things that will get me in the right mindset to do a certain job that day.
Right.
Whether it's listening to a certain playlist or, eating a certain thing or stopping at a certain place while on the way there. There are little things that do help like get in the mindset.
Yeah.
But it's not really an easy solution.
Yeah.
It takes, scientifically they say it takes about a month
something like that
of doing something every day before it becomes instinctual.
I would almost call what you're describing more like a ritual than a routine.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
maybe.
It's kind of like, and I have those too. So like, I worked as a chef for a long time. And so, again, I hate doing dishes, but I never had a problem when I was cooking. Mostly because I was getting paid. But if I'm in my kitchen, I kind of ritualize it and I do like the same procedures and structure. And I just imagine myself as a chef closing my kitchen. And that little bit of like ritualization of these tasks separates it from being a chore and makes it more just like, all right, we just got to do this set of things, which could be called a routine or a ritual. And then we're done, and your brain kind of starts to look forward to the end of it. So I do think that there's some place for these routines and structures. But for a lot of us, like you said, it's lifestyle dependent largely. And you have to find ways of making micro routines and almost these little rituals to get yourself in the right space. So this is another one where I don't think the person really knew that they were right in the way that they were right.
Yeah, the tone with which this is delivered could make or break it.
Yeah.
If somebody's yelling like a military thing, like, you need more structure, then it's like, get fucked. But if it's somebody that's like, hey, have you thought about like maybe making a routine?
Yeah.
You know what? That's a totally different. That's coming from a place of, hey, I want to understand.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
And I really do value my morning routine. And do I do every part of it every day? Fuck no. But do I do most of it on the weekdays and then allow myself the space to just wake up and do whatever on the weekends? Hell yeah. And it helps a lot. It really does.
It can be very comforting.
Yeah.
And I know like a lot of my friends who have ADHD who are also on the spectrum really thrive with this. And if one little thing is off in their routine, like the whole day is ruined.
Right.
There is a comfort in familiarity. It's why I rewatch a lot of my favorite shows over and over again, because I can just sit there and relax and there's no suspense over what's going to happen and I'm not going to miss a detail.
Yeah.
I can just veg out and be comforted by these characters that I know I like.
Absolutely. I like that. So I'm going to actually give this one a pretty high mark. I'm going to give this one a 5.
I was going to give it a 3.
Because I really think that routine and structure are important and helpful for ADHD. Don't necessarily think that the person who delivered this understood how it would apply to my life, but they are technically right. And I do really thrive with these micro ritualized routines that I have. So I really love this one. I'm going to go 5.
I'm going with a 3 just because it doesn't entirely apply. Like, it's not really possible for my life.
I gotcha.
But I give it the 3 because I can see how it would translate to a lot of other people.
Fair enough. All right. So we're only going to, I think, let's do one more and then we'll pause. We'll add everything up and rank them and then we'll go over the results.
Okay.
All right. So why don't you pick the last one? We've got this one here. We've got.
Well, I don't know what the hell that is.
All right. So we'll skip that one. Let's pick one of these down here at the bottom.
Okay. Let's look at shut your phone off and put it in another room when you need to work.
Classic advice that's given not just to us, but to everybody.
Yes. It's very much given to millennials.
Yes.
And I'm assuming the generation below us, but I don't know how many of them are like really working workforce yet.
Yeah, I don't know. It's we'll talk about that on another episode. My brother-in-law just started working at a really job, and it's kind of hilarious at this point. But yeah.
So with that, I think there needs to be a point made that not every job is possible to do without your phone.
That's true.
Sometimes you need, and you don't always have 2 phones.
No.
Like,
I
sometimes,
do, but
I don't.
Yeah.
So like today when I was doing the Family Feud trivia training over Zoom, I needed to have on my laptop and I needed to have my phone out. Because I was basically like playing along.
Yeah.
So I could see what the people playing would see.
Yeah.
And I was getting texts and it sucked and I was getting anxious and I was getting irritable. And I'm like, just fucking go away to all of these notifications. I'm trying to work. Even on Do Not Disturb, it will still pop up if you're looking at your screen.
Yeah.
So
I think it's situation dependent too, like you're saying, you know.
At the end, I totally understand though, because when I'm when I'm doing Amazon delivery, I will have my phone tied like to the Bluetooth so I can listen to music all day.
Yeah.
But if you like even just like pick up your phone and glance and the camera catches you doing it, you can get dinged for distracted driving.
Oh, wow.
So I will put the phone on Do Not Disturb and I will put the phone away and just basically check music. Maybe after a certain number of stops, I'll see if there's anything anything urgent.
Yeah.
Then I'll put it away and I am much more efficient. I get to a point where people can really irritate me with stuff that they're texting me.
Yeah.
And like, I'll just be stewing over that, be like, oh, I can't believe she fucking said that, you asshole. No, I don't care about this right now. I'm doing things. And it's, without that stress, my job is a lot easier.
Yeah.
So there is logic to it. It's just not possible.
It's the application of it these days. And so like, there's different ways of doing this. I don't necessarily think that this advice as it stands is good advice.
It depends on your job.
But there's like, I do a lot of work on my phone, especially for my social media stuff. So I bought a cheap phone that doesn't have actual cell phone service. It just connects to Wi-Fi at my house. And that's what I use when I'm working on my business in the morning. So that way I only see my business related things, and that's the only thing that I have on that phone. And then at 8 o'clock or whatever, I pick up my actual phone that has other things on it. I know that's not a possibility for everyone, but like what you said with the do not disturb and things like that, at a certain point in the evening, my personal phone goes on do not disturb, and only 5 or 6 people who are in my immediate family will it ring for.
Yep.
And I think that there's some benefit to removing distractions from your environment, but I don't think that just putting your phone in another room is the answer to that, because we need our phones a lot of times for work. There just has to be a way to block out parts of it, whether that's through do not disturb or having separate phones if that's possible for you. I got a free one through insurance replacement, basically, so I kind of lucked into a cheap new second phone that I didn't have to hook up.
With that, I would love to have like the second phone or whatever. But even on laptops now, and obviously affording a second laptop is even more astronomical than like a phone, because you can buy burners or whatever.
If this thing goes, I will never financially recover.
But now, like, a new PC feature is it can tie to your phone. And you will get
I opted out of that one big time, dude.
I tried it once and went, no,
I can't do it.
But at the same time, because Facebook, you're always kind of logged into Facebook.
Yeah.
You'll still get notifications from Messenger while you're trying to do things where you don't want to talk to anybody. Yeah. And that's why I think things like, getaway cabins and like going into the woods where you literally have no service, you can put out a mass notification to people and just be like, hey, I'm not going to have service. You can't get offended if I don't respond to you. Bye. And then
it is what it is.
I started, like, when my fiance and I went to a getaway cabin and we didn't have service, we started brainstorming this idea for a TV series we wanted to write. Like, I hadn't had a creative spark like that in a while because I'm so bogged down with making sure everybody is okay.
Yeah, some of the best times Marissa and I have had traveling have been when we have no phone service and it's just beautiful. The two of us.
When it's just a camera, that's when I like my phone the most.
Oh, I love it. And it's part of why I wear a regular wristwatch and not a smartwatch, because I really am into watches. Like, I like them as, like, fun things. But I don't... Like, I love smartwatches in the fact that they have gotten people more interested in watches these days, and it's very cool. Like, it's helped the watch industry a lot. And I sound silly, but like, I inherited a watch from my grandfather that meant a lot to me, and it got me into this as a hobby. So I don't have anything against smartwatches. I just don't personally wear one because that's the opposite of the reason that I wear a watch. I wear a watch because there's no notifications from this thing that are going to distract me.
Fitbit, baby.
I know.
You don't get any of that stuff either.
Yeah. If I need the time, I have the time, and that's what it is for. And I use it to disconnect, whereas other people use it to connect. And I'm not disparaging that. I'm just saying that's a different reason from what I use it for. So yeah, I guess we have to circle back and kind of rank this one. I'm putting shut your phone off and put it in another room when you need to work as a 2, because I think there's some merit in the idea that you need to block out distractions. But I don't think just locking your phone in another room is a solution to that in the year of our Lord 2024.
Right. I'm going to give it a 3 by the same logic. I very much am of the mind, the more I've thought about this, and it's part of why I'm so shit at answering text messages, is that this idea of being in constant communication is so new.
Oh, yeah.
It's maybe 15 years old.
Yeah.
The idea that I send you a message, you have to respond. You don't always want to be connected. Sometimes you just want to veg out and be on your own.
Just exist.
And just exist and not have to worry about somebody's crisis or somebody wondering why you're not responding to something. Like, I in my downtime, I want to exist to make myself happy, and I don't necessarily want to be playing therapist or friend or mother to a million people
at all times. Yeah. And I think it's the expectation of immediate responses that's the issue.
Because I've had people genuinely get mad at me, and then it makes me anxious that am I a bad friend because I'm not responding right away? And it makes me want to respond to nobody.
I think it's about the expectations, because like there were times where my mom would be like nervous if I didn't get back to her in an hour, because she's my mother and that's how mothers are.
Yeah.
But I was like, Mom, look, I practically work 2 jobs. I have a wife that I like to spend time with, a cat to feed and take care of, and a lawn to mow, no matter how much I hate mowing the stupid lawn. Like, I can't always respond to your text right away, especially because my mother likes to send me paragraphs, which is fine. It's just I need, like, before we were doing this, I got like 7 paragraphs in a row, and I was just like, hey, Mom.
It's so anxiety provoking.
I know, it can be, but we're at a good point with it. So I was just like, hey, Ma, I don't have time to read through that right now, but I'll get back to it later. She's like, no worries. So it's about the expectations.
Yeah. So
all right.
I'll say 3 for that because there is merit in detaching and unplugging.
Exactly. I agree. All right, so we're going to pause. We're going to add these all up here, and we're going to cut, and then we'll be right back with the actual ranking based on our averages. All right, so we are back and ready to go over the rankings. There's not a whole lot of variation here because, it was pretty straightforward. We didn't do 1.3 or anything. But the first one, the only one that's in the 1 category, an average score of 1, is you don't need meds, you just need to focus for various reasons. And then we have 2 in the number 2 category. Cass, will you do the honors?
Yes. So we've got the make a list of everything you have to do and do it one by one. And why don't you just do it now and you won't have to worry about it?
Both solidly in the 2 out of 5 category.
Yes.
And we had 2 of them that averaged out to 2.5. So these were ones where Cass and I gave somewhat different scores. Train your mind with enough willpower. You can train yourself to refocus. So cutting out the willpower part of that, I gave it a high score, and we averaged out to 2.5. And then the next one up would be shut your phone off and put it in another room, which I think is one of the ones that we talked about the most.
We did, because there are a lot of ways to take that.
Yeah.
And a lot of reasons it does or doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it's a multifaceted one.
And then we'll take turns on the 3 category. Cass?
Why don't you, about phones, why don't you just use your phone to set reminders for everything?
Yes. And then in addition to that, one of the things that you could set your phone for, also in the 3 category, is to wake up earlier. So just wake up earlier and you get everything done. Also in the 3 category, the last one
is break big projects down into smaller steps. That also got a 3.
Well, that was a divisive one too. I had a very different idea than what you did. And then the last one, the one that we found is an average of most effective advice given by neurotypicals to people with ADHD is you need more routine and structure in your life, which I think to an extent is beneficial to us.
Yes.
This has been Fuck the Plan, the ADHD Project podcast. And as we said at the beginning, I'm Cass.
And I'm Aaron.
I hope you have a great rest of your day.